thank you for joining us for another one of the Iowa Lakes Corridor Development Corporation's What's the Why videos. Through this video series, we're really exploring and investigating economic development throughout the region. We are focusing on manufacturing to celebrate Manufacturing Month, but we're also working hard to understand and discuss all of the partnerships that are a necessary part of economic development throughout the region, and of course beyond just our geographic boundaries, talking about the state and federal programming as well. So today we're going to talk with Burlin Matthews. He is a Clay County Supervisor, a Iowa Lakes Corridor Board member, and so much more, has a wealth of experience and gives a lot of hours to the region. So Burlin, let's start with you telling us a little bit about your public involvement.
I don't know how far back you want me to go, but after I graduated from Iowa State, I spent 35 years in public education, 6 at high school level and 29 at community college. And then, during those 16 years that I've been a county supervisor here in Clay County, I've been involved in a lot of other boards of directors. I've been involved both statewide and nationally with organizations. And so my whole working life basically has been in public and continues to be there.
That's wonderful. So talk to me a little bit about your thoughts on a regional economic development approach, the multi-county approach.
You know, Shannon, I've only known that approach. All the time that I've been on our Board of Supervisors, this is what we've been involved with. And what I do know is, as I visit across the state with supervisors, that some of them have their own economic development group within their county, and then of course nearby we have some too. What I like about the regional aspect is because we work as county supervisors so closely with other counties, we're continuing to do that here on the Iowa Lakes Corridor Board. And consequently, we don't end up competing against each other, we end up working together. And I like that concept. The regional board has so much to offer that individual county boards can't do. In addition to that, from an economic perspective, it's much more economical for us as counties to provide financial support for the corridor than it is to hire an individual or individuals to work on our own counties alone.
Right. I would agree with you. So as you compare the corridor to other economic development organizations, because as you said, you know so many people throughout the state, and with all of the research and connections, as you compare us, aside from some of those benefits you mentioned, what do you think really stands out about the abilities that we have as a region?
Well, first of all, it's the leadership. And you're not just a one-person office. Secondly is you have access to so much data across our 4 regions. And if you stop and think about a company that's going to be looking at maybe moving and possibly coming into some other location, they don't have to contact 4 different counties. They have one contact and you have all the information. I mean, you have infrastructure, you have electrical rates, you have all kinds of things for those counties. So from that perspective, stepping out of my shoes as a board member and looking at it from the other side, that has to be a tremendous asset, both for us as a region and for them as a prospect.
Right.
But you also cover so many more things other than recruitment.
Right.
You know, you cover retention, you cover expansion, you cover all kinds of training. So,
you just brought me a new question.
Uh-oh.
Talk a little bit about just the broad base and you know, economic development is seen as attraction so often. We're looking for those headlines. But, at the corridor, we've really worked hard with business retention and expansion efforts and really trying to take care of our home and our own and helping them grow. So how do you measure success? Tough one, and it wasn't, I'm throwing this at you, but as a county supervisor, how do you look for success knowing that it isn't just about attraction? That's actually just a small part of the work that we do.
I like your question because to me it's one of the areas that we need to work on as a corridor so that information gets disseminated among the population in our counties. I have people that sit in my chairs on my porch and quiz me about what's going on.
Yeah.
And so telling the story probably is one of the areas that we need to work on very, very definitely with a purpose.
Right.
And I know that not every organization that's making changes want that to be known.
Right.
So it's very difficult to do that.
Right, but very purposeful. We've been trying to name our video series here. Maybe that's it, just the front porch talks. That might be perfect.
That's probably a good one.
So, touching on some of what we've talked about, I wholly agree with you in needing to articulate the value of the corridor and what it really means to the residents throughout the corridor, whether or not they realize that. But it also brings me to the next question, which is, when you really evaluate economic development and all of the things that you do as a county supervisor, from transportation to, tax valuations, all of the work that you guys are doing, what is your role in economic development and how do you continue to advocate for economic development in the region?
Another good question. From my perspective, our role is financial. Because for us to go out and hire someone to work as a county, or even if we went with the city of Spencer or other cities, it's not affordable for us. So our role is, number one, is financial. We need to support the corridor at whatever funding level we need to do it at. And then secondly, if the corridor asks for assistance from us on other things, we need to respond to that. Because you are our economic development people. And we understand that.
So the economic shifts that we're seeing and some of the times of uncertainty and the changes that has brought to economic development, and I'm sure to county supervisors as well in the last couple of years, things are a little different than we've seen. There's some new environment to that. So what do you think are the most important priorities for us as a corridor team to remain competitive and to make sure that we are front of mind for not only new businesses, but even our existing businesses as they continue to grow?
One of the things that I hear all the time is the lack of people for employment. So I think that's one of the areas that we probably need to be working on as a board, is what do we do for bringing people in? And secondly, which is one that you've worked on, or the corridor board has worked on, has been housing. And to me, those are the biggest issues right now that we have, are where do we find the people to bring here to work, and where do we house them?
Right. I would agree. So, if someone sees you in the airport or at a conference and says, what is the greatest benefit to locating in the corridor? What's your response?
Well, number one is we have a leadership team at the corridor that is beyond anything people can believe. Secondly is we are sitting here with a university, 2 community colleges, and excellent school systems. In addition to that, we have 2 communities that house lakes for us for entertainment and recreation. Why would you not want to show up in some place like that?
That's perfect. I love it. So let's talk about the next 5 years. Sadly, we know that you're stepping aside as a supervisor very soon, although I know you're always going to pick up our phone calls and be a part of whatever it is that we have going on. But what do you think? We talked a little bit about housing and workforce, but anything else in the next 5 years that you see for the region as a priority?
Yeah. My background is agriculture. Not only did I teach for 35 years, I farmed for 28. This area is agriculture. I think that as a board and as an organization, that dealing with technology and agriculture is a key for possibly bringing new business in. That would be number one. We need to be doing something in that area, and it could be work from home. It could be probably not major manufacturing. That would be nice, but that's. I think there are other areas that we need to be working toward for entrepreneurs that have an interest in that. That would be my biggest item that I think we need to be doing. And then, of course, finding labor and housing and telling the story.
Any other thoughts on economic development, the corridor, before we get to the really tough questions?
Well, I just think it's one of the best things that we have going in the state of Iowa is our corridor. And I'm glad not everybody's doing it.
I love that.
Well, seriously, because one of the things that I learned since coming on the board is the depth of scope that the corridor has, and how you work with the state of Iowa, how we can work together as 4 counties and not be jealous of each other, thinking someone's getting a better deal than someone else, and that's not something I've ever experienced in my relationship with other county supervisors. So those are just some comments.
You know, I think that also, since you're in that political realm, it's a good time to touch on some of the legislative advocacy that the corridor brings. You know, I feel that we do a great job of bringing our state and federal elected officials through, too, to provide access to our businesses. I think that's very important as we talk about the changes that might be made to policy or programming. So what are your thoughts on that as it fits into economic development?
Oh, I think that's absolutely necessary. What you hope is that they listen and that they don't sell themselves to the party. They sell themselves to the constituents. And so how do you get that done is by bringing them out and talking to them and developing that working relationship. One of the things that I've experienced personally with our state legislature has been the close working relationship I've had with some of our state senators and representatives. And I don't do it just when they're in Des Moines. It's during the time they're off. It's during the time when you can sit down and have coffee with them. And I've spent quite a few hours in my last 16 years, not only in Des Moines, but also in town drinking coffee. Because that's a more casual time to sit and discuss. And the other thing I've learned is you have to sit and listen to them too. You can't just unload on them what you want to tell them. You have to listen because they have a different set of information, and you need to learn what that information is as to why they're making those decisions.
I agree. So there's a lot of difficult questions I could ask you. coffee or tea. We've learned you're a coffee drinker. We could ask Hawkeyes or Cyclones,
Oh, that's
but
easy.
we're gonna go. We're gonna go deeper and ask you if you had just one word to describe the Iowa Lakes Corridor Development Corporation. What word would that be?
Leadership.
Perfect. You are the first interview that didn't give me a whole lot of additional words.
Oh, really?
And disclaimers. So, yes. Everyone has a word, but they say there's just so many. But
Yeah, I've thought quite a bit about that question, and you guys, as a corridor, you provide the leadership. Yeah, you just do. There's nobody else around here doing it.
perfect. Well, thank you so much for taking time with us and being a part of this, and beyond that, for being such an advocate for the corridor and the region and all of the time that you're investing.
Well, thanks for being asked.